I wanted to do a comparison video between the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4 and the iPhone 14, but then it dawned on me that I didn't really do my in-depth review of the Flip 4 and answer a lot of the concerns that people had about the device. This is going to be a bit of a dual-purpose video, and I tend to avoid those iOS device versus Android device type of comparisons, and I would be doing that here, but Samsung themselves have been overly aggressive in trying to get people to switch from an iPhone to a Flip 4. You have that commercial where that woman sees a Flip 4 and then questions her entire life because she has an iPhone and wants a Flip 4, and that's fine. And I noted that when we were talking about the Flip 3 originally, especially when they came out with the Bespoke Edition, and when you see the presentations that showcase the abilities of the Flip 4, you know part of the target audience that they're going for. They're going for at least some of that consumer that buys the iPhone because that's the phone to buy, because their friends have it, because that's the fancy phone to buy, the popular phone to buy, whatever it happens to be, that's the one that they've selected. So they're trying to cut into a little of that cool factor with the Flip 4, and you could see that in a lot of the advertisements. But let's get into some of the stuff that people had concerns about when we're talking about the Flip 4 and the videos that I saw. It was never going to be about performance, right? With this kind of chipset in here, had enough RAM, had the power, all the rest of it, beautiful display, all the specs were there. It was never about performance. It always boiled down to the form factor and the durability. And let's talk about durability for a moment, because I've seen it both ways. And that was same last year with the Flip 3. I've seen the horror stories, and I've seen, success stories, where this one, you put a case on it, and if you're careful with it, like you would be any other $1,000 device that you have, you're going to be okay. If you're just throwing it around and dropping it a bunch of places and having it wide open, folded and bending it on things, yeah, you're going to have issues. If you treat it roughly, you're going to have signs of wear. And is it going to wear as well as one of these glass devices that you have, like an iPhone, like an S22 Ultra? No. It's going to be a touch more delicate. But that kind of frames it improperly, because that makes it think that the phone is fragile in some way. It's not. It just has a soft underbelly because of the hinge and because of the display, that if you wail on that, you're going to have issues. So treat your device well, and you're going to be just fine. So don't worry about that. The other thing is the hinge. Last year with the hinge, a lot of people commented, and I noticed it, that the hinge broke in and got weaker over time. And again, that's another one where I say weaker, and you think that it's not meant to last. The hinge itself was still fine. It was still durable. It was still working. It could hold all the positions without any issue. It just, there wasn't a consistent range of resistance, I guess you could say, between fully open and then when you close it, and then all the way down. The Flip 4 does a better job of that, so it does feel a bit more solid. So when you had the Flip 3, when you were folding it, if you got it to about here, it felt like the Flip 3 kind of gave out and just kind of fell the rest of the way down. The Flip 4, actually, if anything, it just kind of is weakest in the middle, has the most play. But then when you get to here, there is that resistance for a nice, solid close. I like the changes they've made on the hinge. I like the changes that they've made with the durability of the device. I think it's an improvement overall, and it's going to help these devices long term. And that's where it comes to a second point that was a point of complaint for a lot of people from the Flip 3 to the Flip 4, saying, well, it's just more of the same. Well, let me tell you something. There is a fine line between being innovative and being an idiot. And a lot of these companies try to push different features and fix things that aren't broken, and you wind up with a device that has more problems than what you were trying to solve. I like, and we sound like a broken record, because it's a year of kind of refreshes. iPhone 13 to 14, kind of a refresh. Pixel 6 to Pixel 7, kind of a refresh. And we've talked about it. It's okay to use all of those resources that you would be pushing into a new design and solving those, putting out those fires as they came up of the research and development of trying to push a new design or push a brand new fancy feature into just making the older feature that was just fine, which is this beautiful design, work. I would rather a year where they said, you know what, let's toughen up the hinge, let's work on durability, let's get the battery life up, and let's make this a fantastic device. We already got a great design. Let's make it better. I like the fact that Samsung has done that with this. And when you factor in that battery life, it is a night and day conversation. And that's one of the reasons why that they feel so confident this year that they can go after Apple and go after that consumer that was using an iOS device. Because last year you were limited. This was a disconnect device, both in form factor and battery life. 3.5 hours of screen on time wasn't cutting it. You weren't competing with anybody with that and trying to get them to replace an iPhone device that was getting 7, 8, and 9 hours of screen on time. It just wasn't possible. It's completely two different customers, completely. With the Flip 3, it was somebody who wanted to do a little bit less with their device. But when needed, they could go ahead into that full smartphone experience. And that's what you get here, is that you get the full smartphone experience, 5.5, 6 hours of screen on time. So if you're somebody who had that iPhone and you just wanted a fancy phone, you wanted that popular phone, but you're somebody who wails on TikTok all day and goes to town on Twitter all day and is refreshing your Instagram feed all day long, well, you could do that now. Now, there is still that barrier to entry, right? We talked about this last year. You still have to open it. And you might say, oh, geez, that takes a split second. Yeah, okay, well, do it 100 times a day. Do it 200 times a day. I'm telling you, there's a cost to that. So if you're somebody who does like to refresh that feed over and over and over again and constantly on your phone and you'll be bothered by this, doing it 200 times a day, then take that into account. But on the flip side of that, flip side, get it? You don't get that everywhere else. On the flip side of that, it is nice having something that fits in your palm, takes up less real estate in your pocket, and it's just a little nicer to hold and a little nicer to carry with, because this is something that's with us every second of every day, carried with us. And if the form factor could be that much more convenient, that is something that certainly helps. All right, so should you be someone who switches from an iPhone or an iOS device? That's more of a conversation, because you're bringing ecosystems into play there. If you're somebody who previously this year looked at the S22 devices and said, you know what, not for me. I'm not tempted by that at all. I'm not interested in those devices whatsoever. Android just isn't for me. Well, then this isn't going to be for you. It might be cool, but I'm telling you, switching from one to the other is more than just technology alone. It's a whole thing that you're taking into account. Now, if you're somebody that says, you know what, I'm fed up with what Apple does. I'm fed up with iMessage. I'm fed up with Blue Bubbles. I'm fed up with the way they do their app store. I'm fed up with the whole ecosystem. I'm done with it. And I want to consider Android, and I want something cool over there. Then you absolutely should consider a device like this, because this is the height of Android cool right now. It really is. And I know a lot of people say, well, the narrow display, it is 22 by 9. That is something to take into effect. If you are somebody that's big on TikTok, for me, it cuts off some of the wording of the videos on some of the TikTok stuff, some of the websites, some of the gaming stuff that you're going to do. 22 by 9 is a little narrow. Now, they make it an easier typing experience for people with larger thumbs like me, and they make the keyboard a little bit taller. So they stretch it out a little bit to give you that little bit of extra space. But still understand that it is a narrow phone and something that you might have to get used to. Overall, I think if you're thinking about it, if you're already wondering, geez, is that flip for me? I'm already on the Android side. Maybe I have an S21. Maybe I have an S20. Maybe I have an older Android device. Maybe an old LG or something like that. I'm looking to upgrade, but I want something different. I want something that feels cool. This is it. And don't worry about the durability. Don't worry about the hinge. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Because if you take care of your stuff, if you take care of your phone will take care of you. It's like what they say with your teeth. You take care of your teeth take care of you. Same thing. Don't go throwing it around. Don't drop it in water. Don't be holding it open over puddles and just kind of flopping it all over the place. You're going to have issues with it, like any other device. You see these people walking around with these iPhones. They're beat up. The iPhone 6 that looks like it's been through a war. Same thing. Be okay with this. Understand that there's that soft underbelly of vulnerability there, and you'll be just fine with this device, because the process is there now. The battery life is there now. The performance has always been there. Really, really neat and nice device. I love it. And the fact that it doesn't get a lot of coverage right now this year is because it is a little boring, but it's boring because it's good. The changes they made were needed, they were solid, and they work. And a lot of times, that's not fancy, and that's not what gets attention. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious.